Good afternoon, ladies, gentlemen, and all my NB friends out there. You are listening to Sacred Voices on KGNU. My name is Astin. I serve on the board of directors for Sacred Voices. And with us today, we have a special guest, someone who is also on the board of directors for Sacred Voices, Miss Josie Valadez Fraire. How are you doing today, Josie?
I'm good, Astin. Thank you so much for that introduction. We also have Metzli Sochi here, who's my little baby. So you might hear her in the background.
We are no strangers to babies and younglings on this show, actually. We had another newfound mother on the show just a couple months ago, actually. So it's nothing new for us. Very, very comfortable with that here.
That's good.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Who are you? What do you do? You have a bit of a local presence here. You have quite the following. So let's hear from you. What do you do?
Sure. Thank you. Biali, everybody. Hello. My name is Josie Valadez Fraire. I am the daughter of Jose and Josefa. I am also a new mother, the mother of Metzli Sochi, who's 3 months old now, which is really exciting. I guess right now I'm in actually a really interesting kind of middle point in my life, trying to redirect a bit and figure out what's coming next for me. But I am an educator by trade. So prior to my baby, I was teaching in Denver Public Schools, working for Girls Inc. of Metro Denver, and doing some different community work here. Now I do a lot more independent work. So I facilitate workshops and knowledge shares, skill shares all over the place about all kinds of different topics, including indigeneity, decolonization, mothering, interestingly enough, even though I'm a very new mother, all kinds of different topics like that. And then I also do one-on-one work with folks that are interested in kind of developing their spiritual connections in their lives and lots of work like that. So a wide range of things. I'm also super interested in mental health and wellness overall. So a lot of my work revolves around that also. And yeah, I'm a part of Sacred Voices on the board.
Right.
I'm also on the steering committee for a few different organizations within CU Boulder. And yeah, just different things here and there. It's funny that you say presence. I'm pretty engaged in the online community. I think I'm most connected through like Instagram with a lot of folks from all across these lands. I also want to say that I would really like to honor that right now we are on Cheyenne, Arapaho, and Ute territory. So I'm really thankful to be here with you today talking about all of these great things.
Right. Thank you for that. I mean, just based on what you said there, that's a lot of things that you're talking about. You seem like a very busy person. And not only that, it seems like you've always been busy. You have, I believe you triple majored when you went to school or something.
Yeah, I did a lot. So it's really interesting. When I was in school, education wasn't considered a major technically. So at CU Boulder, I studied psychology, education, and ethnic studies. And then I had a women and gender studies minor as well. So a few different things, but they actually all fit really well together for the most part. And they've really informed a lot of the work that I do now in community. And also I've been learning to kind of shift out of that academic mindset, and tune back into community in a way that has been really fulfilling, but also now looks very different as a mom with this little one. And, it's been definitely a busy journey, but busy in a very different way.
It just, based on like those three things combined together, it really paints a pretty accurate picture of what you do and what your focuses are, especially when you do these like workshops and you do talks around at different schools around the country, right?
Yes.
So that all seems to make sense a lot. Tell me, what drew you into our organization, Sacred Voices? What keeps you here? What do you want to see our organization do?
Absolutely. So Sacred Voices is really special to me, really near and dear to my heart. And it's been interesting to see like my involvement within the organization shift. I originally started being involved when I was like a first year, maybe early second year college student. And back when it was Café Cultura, right? And I started coming to the open mics, and really for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was welcome somewhere, and I felt connected to the entire community, you know, not just to like specific people, but it felt really good to be there. And so I started coming more often, right? And it became kind of a stronger connection over time. And then, you know, as my years in college kind of went on, I became more and more involved in community. And then I graduated college and I was moving out here to Denver, Aurora area. And so it became easier to become more involved. And I decided to apply to be on the board of directors. So I've been on the board for a few years now. And then with this shift, you know, there's been a lot of change within this past year, a little over a year now, within our organization. And I'm really happy to see the direction that it's going in. I personally have been really excited about seeing the organization focus a lot more intentionally on our youth, with like the workshops, with our programming in general. I'm really excited to see what comes of that, you know, over time. And I think in the past we did a good job at involving youth in schools. Yeah. And I would love to see it continue outside of the school setting as well. So that's really, really exciting for me, because I personally love to serve youth, and they're kind of the population I think most of when I'm doing a lot of my work. And I hope that, you know, whatever it is that I can offer to this organization, I can do that in a good way. And, you know, there are really exciting things coming for the organization as a whole. And I'm really loving the open mics. I'm loving having them here at Denver Open Media. I'm really excited that we're still close by, you know, here on Santa Fe, close to where we used to be, and for folks to still be able to access our space in that way. It's been really lovely to see those shifts. So I'm excited.
I'm excited too. And thank you for all your contributions here. It's one thing about your involvement with the organization is you said you started by coming to the open mics, and that brings up the fact that you are a poet and that you have performed many times at our open mics and have even been featured in the past. That's one of the things that seems to have been left out of your initial description of yourself. You're also a poet on top of all of that. Where does that come from? Because even a month or two ago when you performed, you had new pieces on top of doing everything else. So where does all of this creative energy come from?
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, you know, it's funny. I don't actually tend to describe myself as a poet. And that's my own, my own internal struggle, I guess. Partially because, honestly, I write, I have been writing for many, many years. And really for up until, you know, maybe like 2 years ago, that writing was almost exclusively for me. I would share it with people close to me, my friends. Occasionally I might post like a snippet of something online, but it wasn't something that I ever really performed. Right. So I definitely write a lot. I love writing. It's the way that I express myself. It's the way that I heal. It's the way that I reflect, you know, and it's also the way that I preserve my stories, the stories of my peoples, our oral traditions. Turning them into something written helps preserve them. So that's what I've been doing for years and years. And, you know, that energy, I guess, comes from me having a huge passion for language, for word, for story. And more as I get older, also having a passion for folks expressing themselves, you know, and so I try to do that within my own life for myself. And I have never really been a performer, so that's new to me. Okay. I'm trying to, you know, tap into that more. So I'm really great at speaking, you know, I can talk for days and with almost anybody. And I'm happy to like talk to even large crowds of people if that's what I'm called to do. But the performance of my work is a little different. And so now I think like recently at the maybe 2 open mics ago, a month or so ago, I performed a few pieces, and they were new, and they were almost all about my kind of evolution in identity as a mama. So I think I performed like 3 pieces. The first being, some reflections of like my pregnancy and feeling this little being inside of me and just how special it felt to have them in my body. And then the second one was about like my actual birthing experience, which was a whole nother story and also imagine. So amazing. And then the third being a poem that I wrote for my baby, and also for myself. Right. So it was a really cool little share that I was able to do there, and I was really grateful for the space to do that. But yeah, so I think that way. So writing is easy. Writing is usually pretty simple, and I also think it's simple because I don't necessarily write with the intention to perform or share it even. A lot of it is really for me, and if I feel called, then I'll share it, and it comes out sometimes. But long answer to your question.
That is okay. It was very informative. You were saying that you did workshops for students, and the way that you describe writing poetry, it's a very personal thing that seems hard to convey to other people how to do that for themselves. How do you get somebody else to the point where they can be so honest with themselves and allow themselves to share that with other people?
That's a really great question, and I don't know that I have like a set answer, but I know that I try to create a space that allows folks to feel, that invites people to feel vulnerable, that invites people to trust, if not trusting others, to at least trust themselves. And for a lot of us, I think that's new also, to learn to open up to ourselves and let whatever it is that we're holding or feeling or thinking kind of come out. And for me, like in my writing process, honestly, a lot of the time, I just grab my journal and I just write whatever comes to mind without trying to form sentences in a certain way or trying to censor the thought. And for me, that has been a really awesome process, but it's been a very challenging one because it reveals a lot, So with youth, I try to just invite them to be uncomfortable too, this vulnerability is hard. And a lot of the times I also tell them, like, you don't even have to share this at all. Right now, it's about you trying to let some of this out, giving yourself permission to release some of that. Right. And then later, if you want to work on it more and develop it or share it in its raw form, whatever, that's up to you. And I think when you give folks the agency, the autonomy to express, without that judgment or without those boundaries of like, it has to look this way, or you have to use metaphors in this way, or it has to be this long, it opens up a lot of creativity within all of us. It's very freeing. So that's what I've done in the past. That's how I do a lot of my work. And it doesn't work for everybody, because some people actually really need structure and really would prefer some structure. And so that's where more of the one-on-one can come in, even in a group setting. You can kind of set this foundation together as a group, and then individually, if someone needs additional support, you support them in that way. And so that's what I try to do, but it's hard. And also I don't think all people take to writing as much as others. Like I love writing, but I also know that some people like to sing or write music or paint or draw, and that's their expression. And so in these workshops, recognizing that also, that it might not be their thing, but at least allowing them to have a space to try it out. Right. Right. Yes, Mija, that's right.
I think all of that is important, and some of that is included in our workshops currently. We always try to start with a free write to just, like you were saying, whatever thoughts or feelings you have on your mind, just to get them on the paper with no real concern for like punctuation or spelling or correct formatting or anything. It'll help people to open up creatively to allow themselves to, be open to writing a bit more. So I'm going to take a little bit of a diversion here for just a second. I actually have a bit of an offer for everybody listening right now. KGNU is doing a giveaway for Enrique's Journey with Los Mocochetes as the musical guest on Tuesday, November 12th at the Dairy Arts Center in Boulder. This is a pair of tickets for free. If you would like to be the recipient of these tickets, call right now to 303-449-4885 to claim these tickets. We only have the one pair of tickets, and the first caller gets them. So once again, that is 303-449-4885 for your chance to claim the tickets. I'd like to change the topic of the conversation now to your story of motherhood. I don't even know where to start with this question. Honestly, I feel like I can just present the topic to you and you can take it from there for me.
Yes.
Honestly, what do you have to say about it?
Wow. Well, I have never been so humbled. I'll say that, and I'm learning a tremendous amount every day. I've always said I've always been a better student than a teacher, and my baby is teaching me so much on this journey, and also, oh, bless you, mija, salud. Mothering, I'm realizing, calls for like an entire evolution of self, and I think that goes for parenting as well. But there's something distinct about being able to create somebody in your body, and to have the spirit inside of you. And that also goes for, people that can birth that don't identify as women. And I think that's a whole different experience that I can't speak to, but there's something really special about being able to create within your body in that very specific way. And really, I will say too, I feel like I have no idea what I'm doing most of the time, but I do also trust that there's like this genetic memory, this like ancestral knowing that's guiding me on this journey also.
Right.
Because there's times where I feel like I have no clue, and then I figure it out very simply, very easily. It comes, or I'll just try to trust. Right. Yes. And so, yeah, I think a lot of my journey, I've tried to be as intentional as possible. Whether it was like during my pregnancy, even prior to pregnancy, having really intentional conversations with my baby daddy about what we wanted, and what we were willing to offer.
Right.
And, I think it's like a vision that I've had for so long. So in pregnancy, and especially in my birth, in the birth of our baby, we were so intentional. And I think that really set such a beautifully strong foundation for our baby.
Yeah.
And I feel really thankful. Also, I'm realizing like there is nothing quite like having the support of other mothers. Sí, mi amor. I know. Baby has things to say also about this. But I've been so thankful for the support that I've been offered in my journey from my mother, my sisters, my friends, my comadres, the women in my life. And then also for the men who are stepping into roles that are helping me become a better mother. And so, yeah, there's a lot to talk about, but I feel so full of love. And I also want to say that it's hard as hell.
Yeah.
And that's a thing that like people don't talk about as much. We hear a lot of the beauty, like, oh my gosh, having children is so great, and that's kind of the narrative that's pushed. But personally, I think it's also really important to talk about the struggle, because it opens you up to receive support that a lot of people might not know you need.
Right.
So I'm learning that too. And there's beauty in that also.
Yeah. One question for you, I guess, is So of all the things that, because I'm guessing that when you're pregnant and when you are, a new mother, people have a lot of things to say, a lot of suggestions,
Yes.
experience from experienced mothers and things like that. What is something that people have told you or suggested to you, or something that at this point you have realized is just flat out wrong?
Yes. Well, I will say, kind of going off of that last point about like the mothers that are like, it's all just so beautiful, like everything is just great. And that's just BS, it's just not. It's really beautiful. And well, the thing is, let me take that back. I will say it is absolutely beautiful, and both, it's super hard and challenging, and I don't always feel great about everything I'm doing, and it just calls for a whole shift of self even.
Right.
What I think is funnier is people that aren't parents, or men even, like they're
Right.
not mothers, giving me advice about how to navigate things. And not because people don't know. I trust that there's folks that know a lot, right, and have opinions that might even be really helpful, but there's something really beautiful that comes from like the solidarity of knowing like you've navigated this journey too, so I'm gonna hear you in a different way because I think
Right.
and you've experienced certain things. So sorry, excuse me,
That's
let me
okay.
pause for a sec. Yeah, so that's been pretty wrong, but again, that's kind of the larger narrative. Oh my love. Let me just give her a boob and she'll be all right. Then mi amor, you want to just hang? Do you want to just hang out on the floor or something? Sorry, Astin.
That's okay.
Let me just figure out what this little one needs real quick. You want to hang out here, Mina? Hi. Hi. Wiggle, wiggle. Okay.
It's like you were saying, it's not all easy.
Yeah, and I think one thing I've realized too is not so much being like, no, that's just wrong, but figuring out what works for me. And kind of a lot of my journey, I feel like, has been going against the standard narrative. Even simple things like people talk about like sleep training,
Right.
and how and when to feed your baby, or it's almost like debunking a lot of myths, but also
Right.
things that I just don't agree with personally. That's not my way of navigating this journey of mothering and this responsibility that I have. So it's not even so much that it has to be wrong, but it's just not for me.
Right.
And the way that I'm choosing to be a mother to my child, to be a parent in general, is kind of different than what this society would want from a lot of women or from people who are parenting. So
Right.
I'm facing some pushback in those things.
Yeah, that was something I was going to ask you about, actually, because there seems to be in Western medicine and society now these days a sort of one right path of parenting and motherhood in general, where things like sleep training, like you were saying, or like bottle feeding or whatever, like
Right.
there's just so many things that are deemed as not right, not appropriate, and it's like colonializing motherhood, basically.
Totally.
So, I mean, you mentioned a few things of that already. I don't know if you have any other examples or like particular interactions you've had with people regarding that.
Yeah, and I will say it even starts with my family, and like their beliefs around how to do things a certain way. And like I'll say it, my first like big advocacy for myself and kind of re-indigenizing my mothering journey was like my birth, my birthing experience, I should say, the birth of my child. I chose to have a home birth. I was in the space where like I'm really lucky to have had access to some really amazing midwives. I want to really quickly plug.
Sure.
My midwives are amazing. Felicia is my sister who was there, and Lindsay is another sister who was there and helped catch my child. But also I had some wonderful support from Lo, who is a dear sister of mine also, and they all work at the Community Roots Midwife Collective, and they're located in Longmont, and they're amazing. So with their support, I chose to have a home birth that was totally unmedicated, and it was a really long labor. I was in labor for 37 hours.
My God.
And it was pretty intense. But even that journey, you know, like I had a lot of folks, even my own mother, be like really scared, fearful around me having a quote unquote natural birth. But really all births are natural. It's just, you know, the means that are used with it sometimes are unnatural. So for me, like medication, I didn't want anything to numb the pain I was feeling. I wanted to feel it, you know, and I felt it was important for me to feel it. And so my mom was really scared and wanted me to go to the hospital, you know, and birth there. And that's just kind of what she knows now because of this society, you know, this Western way. And like back home in our village, that's not how folks birthed before. But now that's also how they birth because, you know, colonization does a lot of damage and it's globalizing everything, making it so that everything is this like streamlined way. So even my birth, you know, things like I feed my child whenever she's hungry, wherever we are. And there are still people that look down on that, you know, who say I should give her a bottle or who say I shouldn't nurse out in public. You know, there's like nursing rooms now in like airports and different places. And me, I'm like, I don't need a room. You know, I can nurse wherever. So lots of different things like that. Or, you know, she sleeps with us. She co-sleeps with us, and that's also, some people frown upon that, and really it's like a lot of different opinions that kind of get in the way sometimes because people, and I don't want to frame it as like there's a right and wrong way, but there's a way that I believe is better for my child and how I seek to parent her and care for her. And so like, not to shame anybody else at all, but I don't care to put my 3-month-old on a sleep schedule. Like my baby sleeps when she wants to sleep, and she sleeps however long she wants to sleep, and she eats whenever she wants, and really I'm here to support her. So one big misconception is like, I think a lot of people try to have their child fit into their lives instead of adjusting their lives to fit the needs of their child. So me, like, everything about my life is shifting. The work I do, where I do it, how often I do it. You know, when I eat, when I shower, you know, when I sleep, all based on her and her needs. And that's also, I have the luxury of doing that. Some folks have to go back to work right away. Some folks don't have any additional support at all, you know, and they have to put their children in childcare or all kinds of different circumstances, you know. So me, I'm just really thankful that I'm able to care for her in a way that feels good for me also.
And like you were saying, it's a personal thing, you know. You have your choices and beliefs of how you want to raise your own child because it is your own child. So I mean, just because somebody wants to do something and somebody else wants to do something else, there's no right or wrong, really, like you were saying. So yeah, one thing that came to me just recently that I forgot to mention earlier on is that you have a podcast.
I do. Yes. That's funny because it kind of feels like this is like the opposite of what I do a lot of the time, which is great. And I forgot to mention that too, but my dear friend Alejandra and I started a podcast, and we call it Cosas de la Vida Real podcast, which is like real life things podcast, I guess, translation.
Okay.
Cosas de la Vida Real podcast is a project that we started really to document the oral traditions of our peoples, you know, to do a lot of healing through sharing like we do, and to do it in a way that feels good for us, that's fun and allows us to be creative and allows us to share space with people that have things to say and want to say those things, you know. So
Right.
we say we do everything through love and realness, you know, keeping it real, being honest, being authentic, and also in the most loving, kind way we can. So
Right.
we critique the system a lot. we talk about a lot of stuff that I feel like isn't talked about in a lot of circles or in a lot of situations because of what's appropriate and what's not.
Could you give us an example of like what one episode is?
Totally. So recently our most recent episode that came out, which was a little while ago, and that's kind of mainly due to me and my scheduling abilities, but we did a podcast episode on the forced removals of people from this land. So quote unquote deportations, like that's what it's called in this context. Immigration. We talked about the children that have been kidnapped and are being caged in, you know, these horrible facilities. So we talk about things like that. That was our most recent one, and really it was a lot of unpacking around how this whole nation is just perpetuating and continuing the project of colonization through very targeted genocide of very specific people. And yeah, I won't get super into that, but if you all are interested, that episode is out and available. And the podcast is a lot of fun to do, and it also helps us be really mindful and continue to reflect in our own lives, and hopefully prompt others to reflect on kind of the conditions of this nation, of this system, of this world, you know, and also empower us to do something about it.
Right.
Know?
And it's like you said, it's very informative, and it's probably stuff that you're not going to hear many other places. It's a good podcast. I encourage you to check it out.
Thank you.
And on that note, where can they find your podcast?
Sure. Yeah, we are currently on Apple Podcasts. We're also on Spotify. And we have an Instagram page, which is at cosas.podcast. And we have like a link tree in our bio. So you can click on that and it links you to all the places where you can find us. So yeah, if y'all are interested, it is called Cosas de la Vida Real podcast, hosted by me, Josie, and my friend Ale. And then Baby's also featured on there on a few episodes, so special guest.
Right. Where else can people find you, Josie?
Sure. Well, I'm located here in so-called Denver, so if you see me around, I would love to chat. But I am most active online on my Instagram, which is at Josie VF. That's at JOSIEVF. And also, if anyone's interested in contacting me for any kind of business related things, my email is josievfshares@gmail.com. So that's where folks can find me.
Great. Well, unfortunately, we are basically out of time here. But thank you for sharing where people can find you and sharing your story and everything about you that you've shared. I'm sure that people will love to hear what you have to say and will reach out and find out more about you.
Awesome. Tlazokamati, Astin. I really do appreciate it. And it's been such an honor to be here with you today.
Oh, well, thank you. For Sacred Voices, our next open mic, it will be in November on the 4th Friday of every month. Just like usual, for this month, that would be November 22nd. Yes, that's right. November 22nd, and that will be at 6:30 p.m. The doors open at 6 if you'd like to come in early, support our vendors, sign up for the open mic list yourself. And on top of that, you can go to sacred-voices.org to learn more about our organization, more about what we do, where we are in the community and where you can link up with us. For now, Josie, thank you very much for being on the show.
Awesome.
And we will see you all next month. Take care.